The papers were white, clinical white, legal white. The kind that meant something had gone terribly, officially wrong. My son stood on my porch holding them like evidence, his face composed in a way I'd never seen before, the expression of someone performing a duty he'd rehearsed. Behind him in the driveway sat his car with the engine still running, and through the windshield I could see Melissa's silhouette, her phone glowing blue against her face. She hadn't gotten out. 23 years I'd known that woman. 23 years of Christmas mornings and birthday dinners and late-night phone calls when Tyler had croup or Emma wouldn't sleep. 23 years, and she couldn't walk 30 feet to my door. "Mum," David said. His voice had that careful flatness people use when they're following a script. "These are for you." I took the papers. The weight of them surprised me. Not heavy exactly, but substantial in a way that made my hands know they were holding something that would change things. The top page had words in bold: complaint for civil restraining order and restitution. My name was there. Eleanor Margaret Hartley, respondent. David. My voice came out smaller than I'd intended. "What is this?" He stepped back, putting distance between us in a way that felt practiced, deliberate. "It's all explained in the documents. You should read them carefully. We've been advised not to discuss the details directly. We've been advised. Not I think, or Melissa and I decided. We've been advised." As if this had nothing to do with him, as if he were just a messenger delivering news about strangers. "I don't understand. You'll want to get a lawyer." He was already turning, already moving back toward the car where his wife waited with her phone and her locked doors. "The hearing date is in there, 3 weeks. He was in the car before I could form another question. The engine sound changed pitch as he backed out of my driveway. The driveway where I'd taught him to ride a bike, where I'd taken pictures before every first day of school, where just 2 months ago I'd stood waving as they drove away after Thanksgiving dinner. The taillights disappeared around the corner. I stood there holding the papers, feeling the April wind press against my cardigan, the same cardigan I'd been wearing when I opened the door expecting maybe a delivery. Maybe the neighbour's cat, maybe David stopping by to borrow my pie plates again like he had 3 times this year already. Not this. Never this. Inside, I spread the papers across my kitchen table, the table where David had done his homework, where I'd helped him build his science fair volcano, where we'd sat just last Christmas playing Uno with the kids until Emma fell asleep against my shoulder and Tyler begged for one more game. The complaint was 7 pages, single-spaced. Every paragraph was a small knife. The respondent, Eleanor M. Hartley, has demonstrated a pattern of intrusive behaviour spanning multiple years, persistent boundary violations including unannounced visits, unwanted gifts, and excessive contact with minor children, financial manipulation through loans and gifts creating implied obligation, demands for access to family home despite repeated verbal requests for space. They wanted $47,000. That number sat on page 4 like a stone. $47,000, representing, according to their itemized list, every gift I'd given them in the past 10 years. The down payment on their first house, $20,000. The new roof, 3 years ago, $8,500. David's business loan when the startup almost failed, $12,000. Tyler's orthodontist bills, $4,200. The rest was a calculation of childcare services rendered at fair market rate, $200 per visit apparently, for every time I'd watched my grandchildren. My hands were shaking. I set the papers down carefully, precisely, centering them on the placemat, and walked to the sink for water. Through the window, I could see my garden. The tulips were coming up, the ones I'd planted last fall, thinking about spring, thinking about Emma helping me the way she had since she was 4, her small hands patting soil around bulbs, while she chattered about her favourite colours. Red for love, she'd said, purple for magic, yellow for grandmas, because grandmas are sunshine. We'd planted 47 bulbs together, I'd counted. $47,000. I drank the water slowly, feeling it slide cold down my throat. The kitchen was quiet in that late afternoon way, the light slanting through windows I'd washed just last week, touching things that had been in their places for 30 years, the rooster cookie jar, the hand towels I'd embroidered with seasonal themes, the collection of my grandchildren's artwork held by magnets on the refrigerator. There was Emma's self-portrait from 2nd grade, all wild hair and gap-toothed smile. Tyler's Star Wars drawing from last summer. A Mother's Day card from 3 years ago, made from construction paper and stickers. The letters in Emma's careful script, to the best grandma ever. I love you more than ice cream. I thought about the word they'd used, intrusive. I thought about what else they'd written, the phrases my son who I'd carried for 9 months, who I'd nursed through pneumonia and driven to soccer practice and helped move into 4 different apartments, and held when his father died. My son had signed his name beneath. The respondent's presence creates emotional distress and anxiety. The children exhibit confusion regarding appropriate family boundaries. The respondent's inability to respect our autonomy as a family unit necessitates legal intervention. I sat back down at the table, read it again, then once more, slower this time, trying to find the place where I'd disappeared, where I'd been reduced to the respondent, to someone who needed to be restrained, to a problem requiring legal intervention. The clock above the stove ticked. Outside, a car drove past. Somewhere in the house, the heating system clicked on. I looked at the papers one more time, turned to the last page. There at the bottom were 2 signatures. David's, in the quick scrawl I'd know anywhere, and Melissa's, somehow neater and smaller, each letter perfectly formed. Between them, the notary's stamp. April 15th, 2024. Today. They'd filed this today. Driven to my house directly from the courthouse, probably. Melissa waiting in the car while David delivered the blow, then driving away to wherever they were going next. Dinner, maybe. Or home, where Emma and Tyler were right now. Where they'd probably already been told not to talk to Grandma, not to answer if Grandma called, not to mention any of this, not to worry, everything was going to be better soon. I folded the papers carefully, precisely, creasing each fold. Put them back in the envelope. Then I sat at my kitchen table as the light changed and lengthened. As shadows moved across the floor, as the house around me held its breath and waited to see what I would do next. I didn't sleep that night, didn't even try. Instead, I sat in Robert's chair. I still called it that, even though he'd been gone 8 years, and let myself remember the down payment. $20,000 from the retirement fund Robert and I had built together, saved dollar by dollar through 32 years of teaching middle school English. David had been 26, just starting out, his business degree fresh and his confidence high, but his credit score low. He'd sat right here in this living room, in the chair across from me, explaining why this house in the good school district was perfect. How the mortgage payments were actually less than rent. How this was an investment in their future. We'll pay you back, Mom, as soon as the business takes off. I'd written the check the next day. Driven it to their realtor myself because David said they needed it fast, that another couple was making an offer. Melissa had hugged me in the driveway of their new house, had cried against my shoulder while David carried boxes and the keys jangled in his pocket. That was 14 years ago. The roof. I remembered the panic in Melissa's voice on the phone, how she'd called me before she called David because she knew I'd understand. Water damage spreading across their ceiling, the contractor saying they couldn't wait, that it would be structural soon, that homeowners' insurance wouldn't cover it because they'd missed a payment during David's business transition. I know it's a lot to ask. I know you've already done so much, but we're desperate, Eleanor. We're absolutely desperate, and I didn't know who else to call. $8,500. I'd taken it from the fund I'd been setting aside for the house repairs I kept putting off, my own roof that needed work, my own gutters that sagged. But their need was immediate. Their children slept in rooms that were growing mould. My gutters could wait. They waited still. Water pooled sometimes in the back corner during heavy rains, carved a small canyon in the soil beneath. The business loan. David's startup, the one he'd poured everything into, the one he'd promised would change everything, would finally let them be secure, would make it all worth it. $12,000 so he could make payroll while they found new investors, so he wouldn't have to lay off the team he'd worked so hard to build. Just a bridge loan, Mom, just to get us through. I'll have it back to you in 6 months, I promise, I swear. That was 4 years ago. The money wasn't the point. It had never been about the money, not really. But sitting there in the dark of my living room, looking at the itemised list they'd made of everything I'd given, every birthday cheque and Christmas gift and emergency loan calculated down to the cent, I felt something shift inside me. They'd kept a ledger. All this time, while I'd thought I was helping family, while I'd thought love was what you did, not what you tracked, they'd been writing it down, recording each instance of my intrusion, calculating my debt. I stood up, paced to the window. The street was dark except for the neighbour's porch light, the one that stayed on all night because Mrs. Chen was afraid of raccoons. In the glass I could see my reflection, pale and thin, my hair more grey than brown now, my face settling into the lines that came from 68 years of living, 32 of them teaching children about literature and metaphor and the ways people tell stories to make sense of their lives. What story had David told himself? What narrative had Melissa constructed that made this make sense? I looked at my reflection and tried to see what they saw, the respondent, the intrusive presence, the boundary violation. I saw an old woman in a cardigan standing alone in her house at 3 a.m. By 9 a.m. I was dressed, my hair combed, my face composed. I drove across town to Margaret Sullivan's house, my hand steady on the wheel, my mind carefully blank. Margaret answered on the second knock, her face shifting from surprise to concern in the space of a breath. We'd taught together for 20 years, had retired the same year, had kept up a standing coffee date the first Tuesday of every month since then. She knew me, really knew me, in the way only decades of friendship allows. Ellie. She said my name like a question and an answer at once. Come in, something's wrong. Her kitchen smelled like cinnamon and coffee, warm and safe in a way that made something in my chest crack just slightly. I sat at her table, scarred oak, covered with the morning paper and a half-done crossword puzzle, and handed her the papers without saying anything. She read in silence. I watched her face change, watched her mouth tighten, watched her hand come up to press against her throat the way it did when she was controlling strong emotion. Ellie, she said finally. Oh, Ellie, I don't know what to do. The words came out smaller than I'd meant them, almost childlike, and I hated that. Hated the weakness in my voice, the way my hands were shaking again, the way I felt like I was breaking into pieces right there at Margaret's table over her half-finished crossword. She poured coffee, set the mug in front of me, sat down and reached across the table to take my hand in both of hers. Tell me, she said. Everything. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told her about the years of helping, about every cheque written and crisis managed and grandchild watched. I told her about Thanksgiving 2 months ago, when everything had seemed fine. When Melissa had asked me to bring my famous sweet potato casserole and David had told Tyler to sit next to Grandma because she'd want to hear about his science project. I told her about the unannounced visits they claimed I made, which weren't unannounced. I'd called first, texted first, asked if it was okay, and about the excessive contact, they said, created confusion for the children. I called every Sunday, I said. For years, every Sunday at 2 p.m. It was our time. Emma would tell me about her week, Tyler would tell me about his games. They'd put me on speakerphone and we'd all talk together while Melissa made dinner and David worked in his office. It was our routine. How is that excessive? Margaret's face was tight with anger, but her hands around mine stayed gentle. When did they ask you to stop? They didn't. Not directly. The calls just started getting shorter. Emma started sounding hurried. Then 3 months ago I called and Melissa answered and said the kids were busy. Could they call me back? They never did. So I tried again the next week. And David said they were establishing new family boundaries around screen time, that the kids needed to be more present, that maybe we could connect less frequently for a while. And did you argue? No. I pulled my hands back, wrapped them around the coffee mug for warmth. I said okay. I said I understood. I waited 2 weeks and sent a text asking if we could maybe do alternating Sundays. No one responded. So I waited another week and called Melissa directly, and she said they'd get back to me about what schedule might work. That was 2 months ago.
And you kept trying?
Yes. I texted Emma on her birthday. I sent Tyler a card when his team won their tournament. I dropped off that casserole at Thanksgiving because Melissa had specifically asked for it. I thought. I stopped, breathed. I thought I was staying connected, being a grandmother. I didn't know I was violating boundaries. Margaret stood up, paced to her kitchen window and back. The money, she said. They really want you to pay them back. Every penny. Even the childcare. They calculated it at $200 per visit for watching your own grandchildren. Apparently. She made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh, wasn't quite a sob. Ellie, I watched my grandchildren 3 days a week for 2 years. When Grace went back to work, I was their daycare. If I charged her, she'd be in debt until she retired. I never thought about charging. They never offered to pay. It was just... I spread my hands, searching for words. It was just what you do. They needed help. I had time. I loved those babies. It was a gift to get to be part of their days. That's normal, Margaret said, phlegmily. That's family. What they're doing... She picked up the papers again, flipped to the itemized list, her finger jabbing at the figures. This is vindictive. This is cruel. This is turning love into a transaction and then claiming you're the one who did something wrong. I felt something warm unfold in my chest at her words, at the clarity of her anger on my behalf. For hours, I'd been wondering if I was crazy, if I'd really been as intrusive as they claimed, if my perception of reality had somehow failed me entirely. You're going to fight this, Margaret said. It wasn't a question. I don't know how. You're going to get a lawyer. You're going to show up at that hearing and you're going to defend yourself. Because what they're accusing you of isn't a crime, Ellie. It's being a mother. It's being a grandmother. It's being human. I looked at her, this woman who'd taught 8th graders for 3 decades, who'd raised 4 children and buried one, who'd been married twice and widowed once and had somehow remained both soft and steel. "I'm scared," I said. "I'm so scared." She came back to the table, sat down, took my hands again. "But you're not alone. You hear me? You're not doing this alone." The letter came 3 days later, slipped under my front door while I was in the garden. Just a folded piece of notebook paper, the kind with the 3 holes punched on the side, and Emma's name written on the outside in her careful cursive. I found it when I came in, with soil under my fingernails and tulip stems in my hand. Saw the white square against my dark hallway floor and felt my heart lurch. Inside, her handwriting, purple gel pen, the kind she'd always loved, the kind that smudged if you touched it too soon. "Dear Grandma, Mum and Dad said I'm not supposed to write to you or call you or anything. They said you need space, and we need space, and everyone needs space. But I miss you. I miss you so much. Tyler does too, even though he won't say it because he thinks that makes him a baby. I don't understand what happened. Mum says you don't respect our boundaries, but I don't really know what that means. You've always been nice to me. You've always been just right. I'm leaving this under your door because they'll be mad if they know, but I wanted you to know we still love you. At least I do. I hope you're okay. Love forever and ever, Emma. P.S. The tulips we planted are coming up. I saw them when we drove past on the way to my piano lesson. They look pretty. I stood there in my hallway holding that piece of paper, and for the first time since David handed me those legal papers, I cried. Not the quiet tears I'd shed alone in the dark. Real crying, the kind that came from somewhere deep and broken, that shook my shoulders and made my breath come in gasps. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor, something I hadn't done in years, not since the arthritis made getting back up too difficult, and let myself break apart. Emma was 11. Just 11, old enough to know something was wrong, old enough to feel the absence, old enough to risk punishment to tell me she didn't understand. Not old enough to know that sometimes adults made choices that didn't make sense, that families could fracture along fault lines no one saw coming, that love could be repackaged as violation, and care dismissed as intrusion. I folded the note carefully, put it in my pocket against my heart. Then I pulled myself up, one hand on the wall, legs protesting, joints complaining, and went to wash my face. David showed up unannounced 4 days after that. I heard his car in the driveway, looked through the window, and felt something harden in my chest. I didn't open the door immediately. Let him knock twice before I moved. A small thing, such a small thing, but it felt like power. making him wait, making him stand on my porch the way I'd stood on his so many times, hoping he'd have a minute, hoping he wasn't too busy, hoping I wasn't being intrusive. When I opened the door, his face was tight with something I couldn't quite read. Anger, maybe, or guilt, wearing an angry mask. Mum. Not a greeting, an accusation, David. I kept my hand on the doorframe, didn't step back, didn't invite him in. We need to talk. Your lawyers advised against that, I believe. Something flickered in his eyes. This isn't about this is personal. It's all personal. I kept my voice level, steady, even though my heart was hammering. You served me with papers claiming I've been violating your boundaries for years. That seems fairly personal to me. He ran his hand through his hair, the same gesture he'd used since he was a boy, when he was frustrated and didn't know how to say what he was thinking. Emma's been upset. She's been asking about you. I know. You know? His eyes narrowed. Have you been contacting her? Because that would be a violation of what? I felt the anger rise, hot and sharp. Of your legally dubious restraining order request that hasn't been granted yet? Of some boundary you never actually communicated? She's my granddaughter, David. I have a right to know. He stepped forward, and I saw Melissa then in the car again, watching, always watching from a safe distance. You don't. That's exactly the problem. You think you have rights to our lives, to our children, to our home, to our decisions. You think that because you gave us money and babysat sometimes, you get a say in how we live. I never. You just show up. You text constantly. You ask questions about things that aren't your business. You give the kids gifts we've specifically asked you not to give them. You undermine our parenting at every turn, and when we try to set boundaries, you act like we're being cruel. The words landed like stones. Each one carefully chosen, probably rehearsed, definitely believed. I could hear Melissa's voice underneath his, could feel the months or maybe years of conversations that had led to this moment, to this version of me that I didn't recognize. What boundaries? My voice came out rough. Tell me specifically, because I keep hearing that word, but no one has actually told me what I did wrong. Everything. He threw his hands up. That's the point, Mom. Everything. The constant calls, the surprise visits, the way you treat our house like it's yours, the way you act like the kids are yours. You've never respected that Melissa and I are the parents, that we get to decide, that our family is separate from you. I'm part of your family. You're my mother. That doesn't give you unlimited access. I stood there feeling the sun on my back and the weight of Emma's note in my pocket, and the ground shifting underneath every assumption I'd built my life on. I helped you, I said quietly. When you needed me, I helped you. The house, the roof, the business. I didn't do those things to buy access, David. I did them because I love you, because you're my son, because that's what family does. And now you're charging us for it. I'm not. I stopped, breathed. "You're suing me. You're demanding I pay back every gift I ever gave you. How is that me charging you for anything? Because you held it over us." His voice rose, cracked. "Every time. Every single time. Oh, don't worry about the money, I'm just happy to help." But there was always this expectation, this unspoken thing where we owed you, where we had to be grateful enough, available enough, accommodating enough. It was never just a gift. There were always strings. I felt dizzy suddenly, like the porch had tilted. "Is that really what you think?" "It's what I know." He was looking past me now, over my shoulder, anywhere but my eyes. "Melissa and I have been in therapy for 6 months, trying to work through the damage." The damage I caused.
Yes. One word. Flat. Final.
I stepped back, let go of the doorframe. "I think you should leave."
Mum, no.
The word came out harder than I'd meant it, sharp enough that he flinched. "You came here to tell me I'm damaging you, that I've been violating you for years, that my love is actually manipulation and my help is actually control. Fine, I've heard it. Now get off my porch." He stared at me for a long moment. I watched something move across his face, surprise maybe that I was pushing back. Or maybe hurt that I wasn't apologizing, wasn't promising to do better, wasn't accepting the role of villain he'd cast me in. "The hearing is in 2 weeks, he said finally. "You should get a lawyer." I have a lawyer. I didn't, not yet, but I would. Margaret had given me names. I'd make calls tomorrow. He nodded, turned, stopped. "For what it's worth, this isn't what I wanted." "Then why are you doing it?" But he didn't answer, just walked back to his car where his wife waited, where together they'd decided I was the problem, where together they'd built a narrative I had no place in except as the antagonist. I watched them drive away. Then I went inside, locked the door, and stood in my hallway breathing hard, my hands shaking, my heart pounding. Emma's note was still in my pocket. I took it out, read it again. "You've always been just right." I held those words like a lifeline, folded the paper carefully, put it back over my heart. Then I walked to my kitchen table and called the first lawyer on Margaret's list. The lawyer's name was Grace Torres, Margaret's daughter's college roommate's mother, a connection stretched thin but holding. She practiced family law in a modest office downtown between a dry cleaner and a tax preparation service. Her waiting room had plants, real ones, thriving, and magazines less than a year old. Small things, but they mattered. They suggested competence, attention, care. She was younger than I'd expected. 45, maybe 50, with grey threading through dark hair she wore pulled back, and glasses that sat low on her nose when she read. She read the complaint twice, didn't speak until she finished both times. "Mrs. Hartley," she said finally. "Eleanor, may I call you Eleanor, please?" "Eleanor? I've been practicing family law for 22 years. I have seen a lot of things. Custody battles that made me weep. Elder abuse that made me physically ill. Greed and cruelty in combinations I wouldn't have thought possible. She tapped the papers. This is something else entirely. Is it valid? Can they actually do this? Sue you? She leaned back. Anyone can sue anyone for anything. Whether they'll win is another question. The restraining order request is weak. There's no documented pattern of harassment, no evidence of actual threat or harm. The restitution demand, she shook her head. Gifts are gifts. Once given, they're not loans unless there's documentation proving otherwise. Do you have any written agreements, promissory notes, anything they signed acknowledging debt? No, it wasn't. They were gifts. Then they have no legal standing for repayment. None. What they're attempting here is essentially financial elder abuse wrapped in legal language. Something loosened in my chest. So I don't have to pay them back. You never did. And the fact that they've characterized childcare for your own grandchildren as a service requiring compensation is... She stopped, took her glasses off, cleaned them slowly. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remain professional, but this makes me very angry. Me too, I said quietly. Now, at first I just felt erased. She looked up at that. Erased, like I'd disappeared, like everything I'd done, everything I'd been to them, it all got rewritten as something ugly, violation, manipulation, control. I started wondering if they were right, if I really had been all those things and just couldn't see it. Grace put her glasses back on, leaned forward. Here's what I see in this complaint. I see a woman who helped her family when they needed help, who gave freely, who loved openly. I see people who accepted that help, who benefited from that love, and who are now attempting to weaponize generosity because... She paused. Actually, I don't know why. That's the part that doesn't make sense. What happened? What changed? I don't know. It came out as almost a whisper. I keep trying to figure out what I did, what moment broke everything, and I can't find it. It was just gradual, like they were building a case I didn't know was being built, collecting evidence, documenting grievances. For 6 months, according to this, they've been documenting your violations for 6 months. 6 months. While I called every Sunday, while I texted birthday wishes, while I believed we were family, they were building a file. Grace closed the folder. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to respond to this complaint. We're going to request dismissal of both the restraining order and the restitution demand. We're going to make it very clear that you have done nothing wrong, that their accusations are baseless, and that if they continue this harassment, we'll consider a countersuit. I don't want... I stopped. What didn't I want? To fight my own son in court. Too late for that. To escalate? It was already escalated. To win? Yes. God help me, yes. I wanted to win. I don't want to lose my grandchildren." Her face softened. "I can't promise what will happen with access. That's ultimately their decision as parents. But I can promise we'll fight this legal attack. And sometimes, when people realise their attempted manipulation isn't working, they reconsider their positions." The second note came 4 days before the hearing. Same method slipped under my door. Different handwriting this time, shakier, younger. Tyler. "Grandma, Emma told me she wrote to you. I'm not supposed to either, but I don't care. Dad said you've been stressing Mum out, and that's why she's been sick. He said you don't understand boundaries. I looked up boundaries, and I still don't really get what you did wrong. I miss you. Can this be over soon? Tyler." I held both notes together, 11 and 13. Old enough to question, not old enough to change anything. Caught in the middle of a fight they didn't understand, loyalty being demanded of them in ways they shouldn't have to navigate. I thought about responding, thought about writing back, explaining my side, asking them to talk to their parents, but that would make it worse. Would give David and Melissa exactly what they claimed, me going around them, undermining them, refusing to respect their authority. So instead, I put the notes in a drawer in my bedroom nightstand, the drawer where I kept Robert's wedding ring and the hospital bracelet from when David was born, and the card Emma had made me for my 65th birthday that said, "You are my favourite person." Sacred things, things I couldn't bear to lose. The night before the hearing, I stood in front of my closet, trying to decide what you wear to defend yourself against your own child in court. What outfit says, "I'm not the monster you've painted me as," while also maintaining dignity and not appearing to be trying too hard to appear dignified? I settled on grey slacks and a cream sweater, professional but not severe. The pearl earrings Robert had given me for our 20th anniversary. My wedding ring, which I'd never taken off, even after he died, because it reminded me I'd once been part of something solid, something that worked. Margaret called at 9 p.m. "You ready?" "No." Good answer. Anyone who says they're ready to testify against their own son in front of a judge is lying. "You want me there?" "Yes, please. I'll meet you at the courthouse, 8:45. We'll get coffee first." "I don't think I can eat." I didn't say anything about eating. "But you're having coffee. You're going to need the caffeine." After we hung up, I sat on my bed looking at my reflection in the mirror across the room. 68 years old. Grey hair. Lines around my eyes. Hands that shook slightly with something that might be age, or might be fear, or might be the slow burning rage I'd been trying not to acknowledge. I thought about all the ways I'd made myself smaller over the years, all the times I'd said, "Just a quick visit," or "Only if it's convenient," or "I don't want to intrude." All the ways I'd apologized for existing, for having needs, for wanting to be part of my son's life. Tomorrow, in front of a judge, I wouldn't make myself small. Tomorrow I would take up exactly the space I deserved. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. No jury box, no audience seating, just a long table for us and a long table for them, and the judge's bench raised above it all. David and Melissa sat 15 feet away with their lawyer, a man in a dark suit who'd introduced himself as Marcus Brentwood and then ignored me completely. They didn't look at me, not when I came in, not when I sat down, not when the judge entered and we all stood. Judge Patricia Walsh, mid-50s, efficient, her eyes sharp behind reading glasses. She'd read everything, Grace had assured me, would have reviewed both complaints before we walked in. David's lawyer spoke first. 13 minutes of describing my pattern of behaviour, the unannounced visits I'd called first, the excessive gifting, birthday present. The boundary violations, Sunday phone calls, the emotional manipulation, helping when asked, the financial control, giving them money when they needed it. He made me sound calculating, dangerous, like a stalker wearing a grandmother's face. I listened to myself disappear into their narrative, watched my son stare at his hands while his lawyer described me as a threat to his family's well-being. Then Grace stood. 11 minutes of factual rebuttal. No documented harassment, no evidence of actual harm, gifts given freely with no repayment agreements, grandparent relationships being characterized as violations. She was clinical, precise, devastating. Finally, the judge looked at me. "Mrs. Hartley, would you like to make a statement?" Grace had prepared me for this. "Keep it brief," she'd said. "Stick to facts. Don't let emotion overwhelm credibility." I stood. My hands were steady. "Your Honour, I'd like to say 3 things. First, I love my son. I loved him when he was born. I loved him through every scraped knee and bad grade and heartbreak, and I love him now even though he's accusing me of crimes I didn't commit. That love doesn't change. Second, every dollar I gave them, I gave freely. The down payment for their house, the roof, the business loan, all of it was given because they needed help and I had the ability to help. I never asked for repayment, never held it over them, never mentioned it except when they thanked me and I said what any parent would say, that I was happy I could help. Third, I didn't know I was violating boundaries because they never told me where the boundaries were. They never said, "Mom, we need more space," or "Mom, you're calling too much," or "Mom, this isn't working." They just stopped responding, stopped inviting, stopped including me. And when I tried to understand why, when I reached out to ask what had changed, they served me with legal papers instead of having a conversation. I looked at David then, made myself look at him even though he wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'm sorry if I hurt you. I'm sorry if I did things wrong. But I can't apologize for loving you, for helping you, for wanting to be part of my grandchildren's lives. That's not a violation. That's being a mother. That's being human." I sat down. My hands were shaking now, but I'd said what I needed to say, put it on record, made myself exist in their narrative instead of just accepting erasure. Judge Walsh was quiet for a long moment, looked at both tables, looked at her papers, looked back up. "I'm denying the restraining order request," she said. "Mrs. Hartley, you're free to contact your grandchildren within reasonable limits. Mr. and Mrs. Hartley, you're free to set boundaries with your mother as you see fit, but those boundaries need to be communicated clearly before they can be legally enforced. As for the restitution demand," she looked directly at David's lawyer. "Gifts are gifts, counsellor, you know that. Unless you have documentation proving otherwise, this court will not order repayment of familial gifts. Case dismissed." The gavel sound was sharp, final. David's lawyer was already gathering papers. David and Melissa were standing, turning away, leaving. They walked out without looking back. I sat there watching them go and felt something strange settle over me. Not victory exactly, not happiness, something quieter, harder, something that felt like survival. Eleanor. Grace touched my arm. "Let's go, it's over, is it?" She didn't answer. We both knew it wasn't. The decision came in the mail 3 days later. Official letterhead, legal language confirming what Judge Walsh had said in the courtroom. Restraining order denied, restitution demand dismissed, case closed. I held the letter in my kitchen, that same kitchen where I'd first read their complaint, and felt nothing in particular. Not relief, not triumph, just a kind of hollow quiet. The phone didn't ring. My grandchildren didn't suddenly appear at my door. David didn't call to apologise or explain or even acknowledge that he'd tried to legally declare me a threat and failed. Nothing changed except now there was paperwork saying I'd done nothing wrong. I started walking. Every morning at 7, before the neighbourhood fully woke, I'd put on my sneakers and walk the route Robert and I used to take together. 2 miles through streets I'd known for 30 years, past houses where people I'd taught had grown up and moved away. Past the elementary school where Emma and Tyler used to study, past the park where we'd fed ducks. The world looked different in early morning light. Softer somehow, less demanding. Margaret called it healing. I called it existing. On the 4th walk, I stopped by the library and asked about their book club. The librarian, young, enthusiastic, wearing a name tag that said Mira, lit up. "We meet every other Wednesday, 7 p.m. We're reading contemporary fiction right now, just finished The Midnight Library. Next month we're doing Tomorrow, and Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. You should come." I took the flyer, went home, stood in my living room looking at Robert's chair and the spots on the couch where grandchildren used to curl up, and the bookshelf full of books I'd collected over decades of teaching. Wednesday came. I almost didn't go. Stood at my door with my keys and the book I'd bought and a dozen reasons to stay home. But then I thought about Mira's enthusiasm, about Margaret's voice saying healing, about the way Emma had written "You've always been just right." I went. The book club was 7 women ranging from 40-something to 70-something, meeting in the library's community room, with coffee and cookies someone's husband had baked. They talked about literature with the kind of passionate disagreement I'd loved in my teaching days, argued about character motivation, debated theme, laughed at inside jokes built over months or years together. I sat quiet, mostly, listened, offered a few comments toward the end when they asked what I'd thought of the ending. Afterward, a woman named Diane, silver hair, bright scarf, retired architect, touched my arm. "First time? Yes. You'll come back?" "I think so." "Good. We can always use another English teacher. Mira mentioned that's what you did." 32 years. "Then you're definitely coming back. We need someone who actually knows how to analyze metaphor instead of just arguing about whether we liked the main character." I smiled. Small thing, but it felt significant, like a door opening. Like space being offered that I didn't have to apologize for taking. 3 weeks after the book club, I was walking my usual route when I saw her, Emma, sitting on the low stone wall by Riverside Path. Her bike leaned against the fence, looking at her phone but really watching the path, watching for me. My heart stopped, started again too fast. She stood when she saw me, 11 years old, going on 30, wearing jeans and a purple hoodie, purple, always purple, and an expression that was trying to be brave but showing every crack. Grandma, Emma. I stopped 10 feet away, didn't know if I should move closer, if this was allowed, if David and Melissa knew she was here. "Does your mum?" I said I was going to Kara's house. She lives near here. I have an hour. An hour. 60 minutes stolen from whatever new normal they'd built without me. I moved closer, sat on the wall beside her, leaving space between us, not assuming, not presuming, not being intrusive, even though every cell in my body wanted to pull her close and hold on. "I got your notes," I said, "both of them, yours and Tyler's. I kept them, I keep them with my most precious things." I wanted to write more. Tyler wanted to call. "But they check our phones now, make sure we're not contacting you." "Emma, it's not fair." Her voice broke. "None of it's fair. Mum says you were stressing her out, but she won't tell me what you did. Dad says you don't understand boundaries, but then gets mad when I ask what boundaries you crossed. They just keep saying you were hurting them, and we need to trust that they know what's best. But how am I supposed to trust that when you were never anything but nice to me?" She was crying now, angry tears, confused tears, and I didn't know what to do with my hands, with my heart, with the rage I felt at David and Melissa for putting this child in this position. "I need you to hear something," I said quietly. "Whatever is happening between your parents and me, whatever they think I did or didn't do, none of it, not one single bit of it, is your fault or your responsibility. You don't have to fix this. You don't have to choose sides. You're 11. You're allowed to just be 11. But I miss you. I miss you too. So much. Every single day. Can't you just apologize? Can't you just do whatever they want so this can be over?" I looked at her, this brave, confused child trying to solve problems that weren't hers to solve. I tried that. I stood in court and told your dad I was sorry if I hurt him. But this isn't about apologies, Emma. This is about something more complicated, something I'm still trying to understand myself. Do you hate him, my dad? No, I love him. I love him exactly as much as I always have. Then why are you still fighting? We're not fighting, not anymore. The court case is over. But your parents and I need to figure out what our relationship looks like now, and that takes time. It's okay if it takes time. She wiped her eyes. Tyler wants to see you too. He's scared to say it, but I know he does. Tell him I love him. Tell him I'm here when he's ready. What if they never let us see you again? What if this is forever? Then I'll still be here. I'll still love you. Distance doesn't change that. Time doesn't change that. Nothing changes that. She leaned against me then, and I put my arm around her, careful, gentle, aware that we were stealing this moment, that it was borrowed time, that someone might see, might report back, might make this worse. We sat there for maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15, not talking, just being together in the morning quiet. Then she pulled away. I have to go. Kara's mum is expecting me. Be safe, be good, take care of your brother. Grandma? She was already on her bike. I'm glad you didn't apologize. Then she rode away, and I sat alone on the wall watching her disappear, feeling something break and heal simultaneously in my chest. The letter from David arrived 2 days later, handwritten, his cramped script on plain paper, no legal letterhead this time. Mum, I don't know how to start this, so I'm just going to say it. Melissa and I are separating. It's been building for a while, maybe years, maybe always. Therapy helped us see that a lot of what we thought was about you was actually about us, about how we communicate, about how we handle stress, about how we project our problems onto available targets. You were an available target. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even sure I deserve it. I just need you to know that I'm starting to understand how wrong we were, how cruel it was, how I let Melissa's anxieties become my truth without questioning whether her truth was the truth. The kids are asking about you constantly. Emma's angry. Tyler's withdrawn. I think I've hurt them more trying to protect them than you ever could have by loving them too much. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if we can fix this. But I wanted you to know I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry, Mum. David, I read it 3 times, put it in the drawer with Emma's notes, sat in Robert's chair and stared at nothing. An apology, incomplete, inadequate, but honest. The first crack in the wall. Melissa's note came through Emma, a folded piece of printer paper handed to me on another stolen morning walk. This time with Tyler there too, both of them hovering nervous and hopeful. Eleanor, I owe you a conversation, a real one, not legal papers, not through David, not through anger, just you and me talking like adults. Wednesday, 2 p.m, Riverside Park, the bench by the duck pond. I understand if you don't want to come, but I hope you will. Melissa. I looked at my grandchildren, Tyler taller than I remembered, Emma still in her eternal purple, both of them watching me with expressions that said they knew this mattered, that something was shifting, that maybe things could change. "Tell her I'll be there," I said. She was already sitting when I arrived, looked smaller somehow, thinner, her hair pulled back severe, no makeup, the kind of stripped-down appearance people wear when they've stopped pretending. I sat, left space between us. For a long moment we just watched the ducks. Two mothers who'd shared holidays and crises, and grandchildren who'd been family for 23 years, sitting like strangers. "I'm sorry," she said finally. Her voice was rough, used. "I'm sorry for all of it. The lawsuit, the accusations, the way we froze you out, all of it." "Okay. That's it. Just okay. What do you want me to say, Melissa? That it's fine? That it didn't hurt?" "It did. It destroyed me. You and David took my love and repackaged it as violence. And I will never understand how you convinced yourselves that was true. We didn't." She stopped. Started again. David and I were drowning, in debt, in expectations, in this image we'd built of what our life was supposed to look like, and you were there, always there, being helpful, being generous, being perfect. Every time you helped us, it felt like proof we'd failed. "So you made me the villain?" "Yes." She looked at me finally. "David's in therapy now. Individual, not couples. We're past couples." His therapist asked him to list the things he was angry about, the actual specific things, and he couldn't. He had feelings but no facts. Just this general sense that we were being controlled. "I never tried to control you. I know that now. I didn't know it then. I convinced myself your generosity had strings, that every gift was a debt, that you were buying access to our lives." She wiped her face. "I grew up in a family where love was transactional, where nothing was free. I thought that was universal. I thought that's how all families worked. Mine didn't. Mine doesn't. I'm seeing that, slowly, painfully, through a lot of therapy of my own." The ducks quacked. Somewhere a child laughed. The world kept moving around us while we sat in the wreckage of what we'd built and broken. "I can't promise the kids can see you whenever you want," Melissa said.
Not yet. David and I are figuring out custody.
Figuring out what co-parenting looks like post-separation, figuring out how to rebuild their sense of stability.
But they can see me.
Yes, with structure, with clear boundaries, with communication about expectations and schedules, and all the things we should have talked about years ago, instead of letting resentment build. I can live with structure. No surprise visits. No gifts without asking first. No undermining our parenting decisions, even when you disagree. Agreed on one condition. She looked wary. What? You tell me when something bothers you. You don't collect grievances. You don't build a case in silence. You talk to me like I'm a person who can hear feedback and adjust. You give me the chance to change before you decide I'm irredeemable. Deal. We shook hands. Formal, strange, but also something, a beginning, new terms. Emma's recital was 3 weeks later. Piano, Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, her small hands moving across keys with a confidence that took my breath away. I sat in the back, didn't assume, didn't presume. But I was there, and when Emma finished, when she stood to bow, her eyes found me in the audience. She smiled. After, in the lobby with families crowding around performers, Emma found me, hugged me hard enough that I felt it in my ribs. Tyler was there too, hanging back, but present, and I pulled him in, wrapped my arms around both my grandchildren and held on. David approached slowly, looked older, worn, but also somehow lighter. Mum. David, thank you for coming. Thank you for telling me about it. He nodded, paused. I meant what I wrote in the letter. I'm sorry, I know. Can we? He stopped, started again. Can we try to figure out what this looks like now? We can try, no promises, no guarantee, just possibility. If you're reading this and you recognize yourself, the one who always said yes, who made herself smaller, who apologized for existing, hear this. Your silence isn't kindness, it's abandoning yourself. Your boundaries aren't selfishness. They're recognizing you're a person, not a function. Your love doesn't require you to accept being erased. I think about the woman I was 6 months ago, how I would have done anything, apologized for everything, accepted any terms just to have access to my grandchildren. How I believed love meant accepting treatment that diminished me. Now I sit in my house, with its mortgage I paid off and its rooms I filled with life, and I'm alone but not lonely. I have my walks, my book club, Margaret's friendship, Emma's notes in my drawer, the knowledge that I defended myself, that I didn't apologize for loving, that I stood up and said, no, that's not who I am. The tulips Emma and I planted came up, 47 of them, red and purple and yellow. I can see them from my kitchen window, swaying in the breeze. Someday, maybe soon, maybe next spring, Emma will help me plant more. Tyler too, if he wants, and we'll kneel in the soil together, patting earth around bulbs, talking about favourite colours. But even if they never do, even if this fragile reconciliation fractures again, I'll still be here. I'll still plant tulips. I'll still walk in the mornings and read books on Wednesday nights and sit in Robert's chair remembering who I am. A mother, a grandmother, a teacher, a woman who loved and was hurt and survived and found herself in the breaking. The papers David served me said I was the respondent. I responded, not with compliance, not with apology, with truth. And that, it turns out, was exactly enough.